And now today we arrive at a story Jesus tells about God. A story where Jesus tells us what the Father is like. And more than that, what the Father's world is like. Now, if you grew up in church, this is a story you've likely heard many times. It's found in Luke 15, starting in verse 11. It's a story with many stories within it. So I'm just going to retell it a little bit here. And then Jesus tells it like this. A man has 2 sons. The younger one demands his share of the father's inheritance early. It's an incredible ask. In fact, it's very insulting. He says, Dad, I can't wait till you're dead. Literally, I can't wait till you're dead. Give me what's owed to me now. I want it now. I want to enjoy it, and I'll just leave. Just give me what my inheritance is now. An incredible insult that should require the father to simply kick him out with nothing. Get out of here. I can't believe you would do this to me. But shockingly, the father, and unexpectedly to all those who are listening to the story, and to us, if this is your first time listening to the story, the father, in his posture, in his way of hearing his son say this to him, accommodates him. He gives him the inheritance. And the younger son takes the money, and he leaves home, and he spends it all, and he wastes it all, and eventually finds himself with nothing. He's partied, he's used it, and there's famine in the land, and he finds himself with nothing at the bottom of society, working as a servant, feeding pigs. And as he's starving and suffering in that moment of being at the low of the lowest, he comes to his senses, and he thinks, my dad's servants live better than I'm living right now. So he makes a plan. What I'll do is I'll beg for forgiveness, and hopefully, like, he can't take me back as a son anymore. Like, I've done too much. Like, I've burned all the bridges. I said I wish you were dead. I did all these terrible things. But maybe if I just beg and beg for forgiveness, maybe he'll allow me to be a servant in his house. So sure, I'll still be a servant, but at least I'll be home. And so he returns. He returns home, hoping to be hired as a worker in his dad's business. Again, he knows that's the most he can expect after his actions. But his father, again, unexpectedly welcomes him home, embraces him, puts a robe around him, puts a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, throws him a homecoming party, puts together a huge barbecue, fattened calf and all. And it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Those of us that have heard the story many times, we want to jump right to the end of things. But really, in this moment, it doesn't make sense. And so his older brother, who hears about all of this, sees the party, he refuses to join in. It's unfair. It's unfair, he tells his father, because he, the older brother, has never, ever been given even a goat. He's never been given anything so he and his friends could have a little get-together, let alone a party. And the father looks at him and says, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, but he's found. The younger brother actually tells us a story, doesn't he? In his version of his story, as he heads home in his shame after squandering his father's money, he rehearses a speech he'll give his father. He's convinced he's no longer worthy to be called father's son. That's the story he's telling us. That's the story he's believing. And it's the story that we, if we're honest, might be telling about him as well, right? It's stunning then in the story, then just as we're all on the same page about this young man or about people we know like him, that when he gets home, his father, instead of demanding a groveling apology, his father instead demands what? That the best robe be put on him, a ring put on his finger, sandals on his feet, all the marks and signs of being a loved child. And right off the bat, we have a collision of stories, don't we? The younger son has to decide whose version of his story he's going to trust. His or his father? Which story is going to be ultimately true in his life? The story in which he's no longer worthy to be called a son, or the story in which he's a robe, ring, and sandal-wearing son who is dead but is now alive again, who was lost but has now been found? And the same, it turns out, for the older brother, doesn't it? He too has a version of this whole story. He tells his father, all these years, I've been slaving for you. I've never disobeyed you, never disobeyed your orders. Yet you have never given me a young goat so I can go celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, he can't even say the brother's name. He can't even say my brother. When this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill a fattened calf for him? What he reveals here is what he really thinks about his father, doesn't he? In his version, in his story, he thinks his father is not generous towards him. His father's cheap. And then in his story, third, he claims that his father has dealt with his brother according to a totally different set of standards. He thinks his father's not fair. He's ungenerous, he's a slave driver, and he's not fair. He believes he's been wronged, shorted, shafted. He's furious about it. Now, the father listens to this version of the story as well. It's notable that his posture is the same as it was for the younger brother. The father isn't rattled or provoked. He simply responds, "You're always with me, and everything I have is yours. My son, you're always with me, and everything I have is yours." And then he tells him that they have to celebrate. Now, in one sentence, the father manages to tell an entirely different story from the older brother, doesn't he? First, the older son hasn't been a slave. He's had it all the whole time. There's been no need to work, obey orders, or slave away to earn what he's had the whole time. Second, the father hasn't been cheap with him. He could have whatever he wanted whenever he wanted it. Everything the father owns has always been his, which includes, of course, the fattened calves. All he had to do was receive. And third, perhaps the most dramatic part of the story, is that his father doesn't have a different standard for his sons, but he has the same unfair standard. It's not that his father hasn't been fair with him, it's that his father has never set out to be fair in the first place. Grace and generosity aren't fair. That's the very essence of what grace and generosity is. The father sees the younger brother's return as one more occasion to practice unfairness and generosity. The younger son doesn't deserve a party. That's the whole point of the party. That's how things work in the father's world. Profound unfairness and incredible generosity. People don't get what they deserve. And perhaps the most important question we can walk away with today, one worth deep reflection and prayer, is simply this: which story do you believe? Jesus says, don't forget who you are. Come to the Father who loves to offer you grace. Don't forget who you are. Come to yourself. Your truest identity can only be found when you go to the Father. So it leaves us with a question to ponder. Will you trust your version of your story or the Father's version of your story? Can I say that again? Will you trust your version of your story or the Father's version of your story?